right. Okay. So we're at 12:31. Okay. So this is our first live event with the Breaking the Burnout Cycle as a duo. Giulia, of course, has done lives before for Solstice and other reasons, but now we are joining together as a team to talk about all things burnout and how to help you through your burnout. And so what we thought we would do, thanks, Tracy. We look great. All right. Or everything's working at the very least. We're going to frame this for you so you know exactly what you're getting into. Giulia and I are just going to have a little mini 5-minute interview so that you can get to know us a little better and why this is an important topic for us. We're going to talk about a seasons model for transitions. So how we can use a metaphor for seasons for moving through transitions. And then I'll give you my example of how poorly I can move through transitions sometimes and the things that I look for to ease myself into those phases. And then some technicalities around like what this group is about and if you want notifications and that sort of thing. And also before we start, just to remind you, we have a YouTube channel that has a 5-session mini course with practices for burnout, for all the seasons of burnout. All right, so I have chatted a lot right now, and I want to know from Giulia, who is a food alchemist, chef, embodiment coach, and burnout, I don't want to say guru, burnout expert. Guru has all kinds of connotations. I want to know how all that pieces together. What was the thing for you, Giulia, with being the alchemist, the food piece, the embodiment piece, and burnout? How does that weave together for you?
Fine, yeah. It was like, I've been through a burnout. Actually, the cyclical burnout things that we talk about is how I start to frame it because I observe a pattern into my life due to chefing, like being in high stress environments, but also due to emotional exhaustion, due to traits of my personality that are like I get into things very passionate and I tend to burn out myself. So there was a point in my life where I was totally lost and I was like, oh my God, who I am. There is no purpose, what I'm doing. And cooking without purpose is feel pretty poor. So there was no like when you feel that you are exhausted and you are just doing it as a poor tramite becomes very, how can I say, very sad. And so I started a journey discovering things and I was like, I need to make food again a love practice. I need to nourish myself and the people around me in a way that makes sense. So there need to be the body and awareness of the body and nature around this, the nature awareness, the cycle awareness around food. And so is how everything starts. And the food alchemist is just a way to put together the body, the nature, and the food in a way that resonates with your own way to do things. Yeah, I think I don't want to take too much space, but this is almost how I came up with this transformation and integrating career. So I will always be a chef, but I prefer to like guide women into food alchemies because I think they will really need to know what we need and what we like and don't really rely on anyone because our body knows and we know if we just pay attention to ourselves. Yes. So, Kandis, it's your turn. Question. So, you also are going through integrating career because you have been a naturopath for long time, I think more 20 years. Am I right?
What am I at? Like 13, if my math is
13.
right. So.
Okay. And now
Mhm.
you are also an embodiment coach. So
Mhm.
why and how you are integrating it into your own practice?
Yes. So it took me, my story is one that I stopped practicing as a naturopath for a year. Um, I'm now recognizing, and some of it was because there was pieces of my practice that I felt were missing. So being able to help people with their health journey and also seeing the barriers to success for some people, which were more life related. So stress of a job, overgiving, overachieving. So all of the kind of recipes that we talk about for burnout. And I could see those things and I could say, oh, here's these things. And I didn't feel like I had enough tools to offer support in that way. I mean, I could give adrenal support and supplements and dietary changes and sleep recommendations. But the piece that I think is truly important in this style of practice is the embodiment piece and the coaching piece, where we can say, here's these things that I think would be valuable, maybe sleep hygiene or certain foods to eat, or maybe taking supplements. And here's the life piece, or here's the tools, your motivating factors, the things to manage stress, the things to be able to kind of balance your life. I now feel I can offer wholeheartedly and completely. And I had to stop my own practice to go on this journey for myself. And also, I think once I stopped, I realized I was pretty burnt out, because prior to that, I had noticed that my why was also missing. So I was treating people, and I have lovely people that I see. My patients are delightful, but I just felt really like, oh, I just was exhausted and I was drained, and I felt like I didn't care as deeply as I had been. And it wasn't until I stopped and kind of walked away that I realized, oh, I'm really tired and maybe I need to be doing this differently. So
Mhm.
part of this process for me was also figuring out how I wanted to design my life in a way that wasn't like this constant
Go.
rat race wheel feeling of like go and keep going and got to work these hours and make this much money and do all of these things. It was like, okay, how do I want to design my life so that I can feel good in my body? I can feel like fulfilled in my spirit and be present for my family. So that was sort of been the journey for me. And now I feel like I'm able to combine those, which is lovely.
Yeah. And let's say also that you say something very, I think that is very meaningful for the work we do. That is like when you stop, and it's only when you stop and you pay attention that you really notice what is happening.
Yes.
So, and what I'm doing, is this really meaningful to me, or just I'm doing it because I'm so used to do it? So, and this theme about stop and pay attention is bring us into the topic of the week about transition. So we choose as topic of the week transition. Am I right, Candice? Or it was your? It was my turn to talk. No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I was like, oh, maybe I'm missing a piece. And so transition are exactly what society doesn't really allow us to full live, to full be into it, because we usually finish a task and then jump into another one. So this is, I mean, maybe you do differently, but this is a like tendency of this endless productivity, that we never stop something, we just celebrate it and we just slow down and digest and then come into something else. And we want to tackle the transition topic that is huge, and obviously we can say tons of things, through season. So a way we think is very metaphorically impactful is using season as a metaphor to observe how nature do things. And so how we can be inspired and also notice how we do things. And in this case is how winter unfold into spring and how slow are trees before they just start blossom, and what happened actually in nature during this transition. So because I mean, if you have nature around you, you notice that it's not happening from a day to another. There are like days where everything is going slow and things happen and there is a little more light and more sun and the tree can just transform, but it's really slow. So we like this metaphor because like of all the burnout stage, there is a part of the burnout stage where we are asked to slow down and we are asked to pay attention to transition, because transition are where we burn out like most of the time. Exactly where we were saying, me and Kandis, about our experience, like I need to happen to me to arrive to a point where I was so exhausted and so like burn that there was no any other option. But it doesn't have to be like this all the time. We can have option before we completely burn and we are exhausted and we are in a bed sick. Am I right, Kandis?
Yes. And so this transition from winter into spring in the seasons model, winter is equated with rest. So if you look at nature, you see the trees, many, in the northern hemisphere and the southern, the seasons are flipped, but there is this, the leaves change color, they fall off, the trees get still. In Canada, we have a lot of maple syrup trees in the eastern part of Canada. And in the spring, like they have this sap that kind of, I guess, freezes in the winter. And then in the spring, the sap starts to run, and then we collect that and make maple syrup from it. So I liken that, like, even the trees rest before the productivity needs to happen. And that's one key thing that we tend to miss, most of us in North America. I don't know if Italy's maybe a bit better at this than we are in terms of, but and that's what I noticed for myself. So moving from let's say transitioning out of my naturopathic practice to doing this embodiment work, to getting back into practice, one of the key things that I had to really learn was I cannot start this next business until I have rested. And my body was a really great guide for me to know when the time was right, because prior to that, I just couldn't, the clarity of mind and the clarity of thoughts and the ideas couldn't come until I had embraced that winter moment, that resting and allowed recovery. And then, which for me, because I had been going for so long, was quite a few months. Let's hope it's not that way for you. But that winter, and just really recognizing the rest is key, and it's actually efficient and required before you can move into spring mode, which is, the birthing of ideas and the moving forward with a project or something. And so I think winter in particular for us is a key thing that we need to look at. So if that's, as Giulia said, we've hopped from one project to another, taking the time to reflect and to pause, thinking about what was great about that last project, what would I do the same, what would I do different, which is sort of fall moving into winter. Give yourself a moment to recover. And then spring is new ideas. What am I going to take from that last project that I loved? What am I going to leave behind? Which is some of the questions that we had asked you around. What are you dragging with you? Like, what do you not need to be carrying with you? And what do you want to carry with you?
Yeah. I have to say that as Italian, I think that we are pretty like sinking to season because of food. So everyone knows that spring is coming because there is new things to eat. And as chef is also like a way to ground myself, like, oh my God, it's come this and this and this and this. But people are pretty like culturally pretty strongly linked to that. And I think that is a very good embodied way to being aware about how season change. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that could be very interesting. I mean, looking at some of the seasons and the foods that are now in season, and to have that even be a reminder for ourselves as like, oh, it's berry season, it's, spring,
Yeah.
summer, and I'm moving into this. Or in Canada, apple season is in the fall, right? So thinking about what does fall represent and what are you moving into there. So yeah. Yes. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Julia, on the topic of seasons?
Yeah, I can say more,
Transition?
but I think I'm good.
Anybody want to stay for 4 hours? No? Okay. Yeah, so in essence, what we're looking at is having you recognize spring is on its way, and what do you want to bring? What was the message, and what did you learn in your winter phase? What do you want to bring with you? What maybe you're dragging with you that's costing you energy? And so Julia is going to this week take you through practice. I don't know if I froze there, but Julia's going to take you through an embodied practice on Thursday. I think that is going to reveal some patterns of how you typically transition. So she's going to take you through a movement practice and just see what you notice. And I'll let her guide that. So stay tuned for that. We do have some technicalities. What we want to remind you of is that if you want to be notified of our live events or things that we post, turn on your notification buttons. And so we'll post a little thing on how, if you don't know how, for those of you who are Facebook newbies or unsure. And the other thing I wanted to mention is our flow through the week. So typically we're going to be posting a question or a reflection on a topic on the Monday. Tuesdays we'll go live. Wednesdays we'll have some more kind of deepening content for you, which may be based on questions that you have. So if there's questions that arise, please feel free to use the group to ask them. And then Thursday, typically we're going to have an embodiment practice, and then Friday will be more light content, and also a space if you have your own offerings or requests that you can put them in there. We'll have a post that we do, and you can just list them under the post. And I think that is it. And again, we have our YouTube channel, so you can
We
check
have
that out.
2 things on the week. Wednesday is also the day where, if you want to, we will we will welcome new members on Wednesday. And if you want to present yourself, say something about you to the group, share something about you, you are welcome to do that. It's gonna be like the day where we can just share our whatever it is, something about us. And Saturday, like 2 Saturday a month, there will be a book prescription starting from this Saturday. And I'm super happy because there is a collaboration with another woman that's is Tracy, that she's also watching us.
Yes, she is here. Yeah.
And but I will not spoiler this more. You will see.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So if there's any questions that you have, let me just check the chat. Yes, Helen has said we've lost touch with seasonal foods in Ireland. Sadly, growing my own food has helped a lot. Yes, absolutely. Having your own garden is definitely.
Wow, this is precious. I envy
Yeah.
you. I want my garden back. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's definitely helpful in terms of knowing the seasons, or looking at local farmers markets too as an option. If there's, seeing what's coming out in season through the farmers markets is always a nice thing to do too, if you've got any locally, to start to think about seasons and transitions and what you want to be focused on in different seasons, for sure. All right. So on that note, I think we'll wrap up today's session, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday. It will be 1:30 Eastern time, 6:30 Central Europe time. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And it's spring break for me and my family, so I will be at a ski hill, so I may or may not join, but Giulia will be sharing some information with you. And if I do join, it will be with my ski helmet on from the ski hill.
And yeah, tomorrow is also International Women's Day, so we will celebrate in some way with you all. I know that have to be International Women's Day every day, but I mean, it's also good sometimes celebrate us. Yeah.
Yes, correct. All right. All right. On that note, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, whether it's your evening like it is in Europe, or your lunch break or your morning, depending on where you are in North America. Have a great day, and we'll see you again next week.
Ciao.